Hello, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Jody Anderson Duquette here with Workamper News, and this is the Workamping Q&A session for May of 2024. This year is really flying by. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us live for this webinar or to watch the recording. For those of you who are on the live webinar, if you guys do have questions, now we had a lot of pre-submitted questions, so I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the pre-submitted questions, but those of you who are on the live webinar, if you would like to type in some input or have questions yourselves that you'd like to input, I'm happy to take those questions live. And so in your GoToWebinar control panel that you should have on your screen, if you're on like a laptop computer, there should be a questions or chat section in that control panel. If you are on a smartphone or tablet device, you'll have that questions option on the bottom of your screen, so you can tap on that, type in whatever you'd like, and then tap back to the presentation. If you are on that smartphone or tablet, you can swipe between my talking face and the PowerPoint presentation that I'm sharing. So just do a swipe on your screen, left or right, to go in between those two things. We are recording this webinar today, and we'll have the recording available on the Workamper News YouTube channel. I'll have it in the media library at workamper.com. We'll have it on our Vimeo channel. And if you are watching the recording, you can just go down to the description below and expand that description. And in there, I've put the list of the questions that we're discussing today and the timestamps, so you can jump right to different questions that were talked about. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. I'm here with Workamper News. Myself and my husband were the current owners. We are not the creators of Workamper News. It was created in 1987 by another couple, but my family took over in 2005 and my parents retired, and so now it's my husband and I, so it's a family affair here. And so I've been at Workamper News about 17 years now, I think. My husband and I were also RVers ourselves. We've been RVing since about 2012. We've lived and traveled in very briefly a Class A gas motorhome. We full-timed in a 40-foot fifth wheel for about 4 years. We've had a Class C motorhome, and now we have a travel trailer. So we're well versed in the different types of RVs and understand the ups and downs of RV living. We have loved it and hated it many days. It's not always, rainbows and sunshine. And that's where, sessions like this Workamping Q&A and a lot of the resources I'm going to, direct your guys' way really come into play. And the more you can learn about this lifestyle ahead of time, if you're just exploring this for your future, the more you can know about it ahead of time, the better decisions you can make for yourselves on if you think, this lifestyle is right for me or this isn't going to be for my future, And our goal here at Workamper News has always been, helping you guys understand this lifestyle so you can live it more confidently and more successfully. There's, like I said, definitely some challenging things that you may encounter, and, knowing what to do and when to do it and stuff will just make things go a lot more smoothly for everybody, and hopefully less surprises come up that way. So if you're not familiar with Workamper News, workamper.com, that's our online home. We are the creators of the term work camper. We defined it and trademarked it back in 1987. So every instance out there is because we started it. So we've been at it the longest. We have a huge database of employer members as well as Workamper members. We are supported by both sides. We're the only, business entity out there helping Workampers live this lifestyle, and the employers recruit Workampers as well. There are, other websites and Facebook groups and things like that. But if you're looking for kind of a one-stop shop, somewhere where you can go to get trusted information, get job listings that are legitimate, easily search through them, have more consistent information with the job listings, easily create a resume, research employers, connect with fellow work campers, etc., without, being buried in spam banners and junk. And we don't ever sell or share your data. When you, post your resume on our website, it's not just out on the open internet for anyone to find. all the job listings that come through our system are reviewed by our team first. We've stopped some spam ads coming through, so I can certainly tell you there are spam ads on other platforms that don't have people processing and looking through all of the ads first. So we're not the only resource out there, but we're the largest quantity of opportunities, the longest running, and we are super passionate, and my team here love what we do, and we're happy to provide all of this stuff for you guys. So I hope you'll check us out if you haven't yet. I promise this webinar is not going to just be a commercial about Workamper news. I am going to show you guys a few resources just to kick things off, but I promise you we're going to dig into the questions and just give you guys a lot of free and helpful information on all the different questions that you've asked today. So I would like to just kind of start things off, just so you guys know kind of where I'm coming from with answering some of these questions. And so just real quick, workamper.com, this is our online home if you've never seen it before. If you are watching this video in the future and our website looks completely different, that's because we're in the midst of a complete rework of workamper.com. So in 2024, we are going to launch a completely new version with even more whistles and bells and awesome stuff to help you guys. But you can join our website, Workampers. You can do a free trial of our diamond level membership. That's the most popular membership. But after that, it's only $47 a year. All of our job listings are available for free, but our member tools and resources and stuff are available with that membership fee. And we're completely supported by our employers and our Workampers. We're not beholden to either party because both of you keep our doors open and our website running. But we like I said, we don't sell your data. You don't see all this junk and stuff on our website. So we're not making income from other sources. You guys totally support us. So once you join and get logged in, you're taken to the dashboard page. This is the jump off page to the main tools and resources that are available with membership. With our job listings, you go to the hotline jobs. We actually have like 5 different avenues for connecting with employers, but the hotline has the most recent and is constantly updated. And as you guys will see with our job postings, we always have this consistent information. Are solos considered or not? What is an RV site provided? Is it provided for a fee? Is there housing available? What's the compensation like? When does the job start? So all those things you can use then to search our job listing. So if you're looking for a specific state, a specific compensation type, you want to start in the month of May, you can do searches to just view the job listings that match that criteria. So that's super cool. We also have what's called Workamper experiences postings. So these are reviews written by Workampers that have worked for that employer before. So you can click that link to go and read those reviews. And we also hope that you'll share reviews about the employers that you guys have worked for. So that's just kind of a real quick crash course there into like our ad listings. We'll talk a little bit more about the resume builder with one of the questions that are coming up, but lots of tools on here for you guys to dig into and connect with. We also do a weekly podcast. It's called the Workamper Show. So you can go to workampershow.com or in your favorite podcast streaming app, just search for the Workamper Show, and that will pull up and you can listen to any of our 277 episodes. So that's out there for you. We also have a blog website called goneworkamping.com. This is where we post a lot of free articles, and I'm going to show you guys a couple, specific articles that answer a couple of the questions that we're going to talk about today. So those are, some free resources you can get into. Even at workamper.com, you guys, we have in the top right corner up there, there's an FAQ link. And this Workamper FAQ is super, super thorough. Basically, anytime I see a question posed in a Facebook group about work camping, we've answered that question here in this FAQ. So lots of good input here in this free FAQ page. So, but my point for kind of coming up here is what work camping is to us, you guys, is doing any kind of work while living in an RV. So to us, work camping is not working in a campground only, or I'm working a job where an RV site is given to me. Like, the definition for us is a lot more broad than that. So I hope to kind of open your mind up, because there are a lot of really cool opportunities out there. And that's one of the cool things about work camping, is that you will get to work for business types that you never thought you'd work for. You could do, job duties that you never thought you would ever do, and you hopefully will find things that you really enjoy doing. So don't just think, oh, I want to work camp, that means I have to work in a campground, I have to work in an office, or I have to mow the grass or whatever. Like, that's not all that's out there. There really is a pretty big variety of opportunities. So as you're going through our hotline jobs page, we have our online magazine archive, because we did used to produce a publication, which we stopped doing, and that's actually one of the questions in the PowerPoint, so I won't get into it too much. But if you dig into our online magazine archive, you'll see a lot of different variety. And also, going back to our podcast here, you guys, the 200th episode of our podcast, myself and my husband, we just went over 200 different job positions that we have seen or know about or whatever with work camping. So it really is a lot more broad than just working for an RV site or just working it. So dig in and get into these resources, so you can start to open doors and see. You might be able to find stuff that like relates to hobbies that you're really interested in. Like, I know this work camper couple, and he really loves astronomy, and he actually travels with a telescope. And so he and his wife have work camped at some state parks, which were, dark sky parks, where they're in an area where there's, no surrounding lights. So it's really great for stargazing. So he would go and, in trade for their RV site at the state park, he would go set up outside of the visitor center with his telescope and show people, the stars or the planets or whatever was in the sky, because it still typically was in the daytime or maybe at dusk, and talk about astronomy and telescopes and stuff with the visitors coming and hanging out at the state park. And his wife, Joy, she would work inside the visitor center, just, passing out pamphlets, telling people where the bathrooms are, etc., checking people in maybe if they're coming to camp. So that's what they did in trade for an RV site, and they have done that in multiple places now and really enjoyed it. So sometimes your hobbies can turn into the work camping gig, or you just never know. There are a lot of opportunities out there. Now, one thing you won't see a lot in the kind of work camping community, in the work camping related resources, are remote positions where maybe you're just sitting at your computer and you're doing some sort of work over the internet all the time. Those types of positions are rarely advertised to work campers, because those employers, like, it doesn't matter if the person is living in an RV or living in a house or an apartment or whatever, like, they don't care. Like, it doesn't benefit them to advertise specifically to work campers to fill those positions, So you will rarely see remote work positions in our resources. There are some, and those have typically been RV related businesses. So they're already in the RV industry, so they do actually want to hire RVers because they want people who understand the RV lifestyle. But if you're just looking to do something that's like internet-based data entry or whatever, then the typical job finding resources that everybody uses to find jobs is more likely where you're going to find those kind of positions. So just kind of wanted to throw some general information out there before we dive more specifically into the questions, so you guys have kind of a general understanding of what we feel work camping is here. Okay, now getting into, again, these are all the pre-submitted questions that you guys had, and we got a couple via email as well. Okay, so the first one up here, this, after replying to a job posting, what is the next step? If there hasn't been a response after a week, should there be a follow-up request? Yes, absolutely. After replying, the next step is to follow up and to communicate with the employer. And I'm going to pop right back over to my browser, guys, because I was just looking at this earlier. But follow-up is important, and is something that we recommend work campers do. So I'm going to point you to 2 articles here before we dig in. So I'm at goneworkamping.com, and one of the articles here is called The Wait. You found what sounds like the perfect job, you send your resume, then you wait. And it's like, that's one of the more frustrating, times in the work camping realm. So there's this article you can peruse through, and also this article called Following Up, Being Persistent or Being a Pest. And this just goes in a little more in depth into, this specific question. So yes, absolutely, definitely follow up. And it's going to kind of depend also. So if you are applying for a position, so like right now, today is May 9th, and with work camping, typically there are kind of 2 main seasons. There's the summer season, which is April, May through September, October, and then the fall winter season, September, October through about April. And so right now there are a lot of employers scrambling to fill their team for the summer season. There are more opportunities available in the summer because more businesses are open in the summertime, because up north in the like that upper half of the country, a lot of those businesses close down in the winter, so there are fewer opportunities in the fall winter, more opportunities in the summer, so a lot more employers are recruiting. So right now, what we're seeing, like with our hotline jobs, about 80% of them or so are recruiting for start dates like now in June. So if you are currently applying for jobs that are, starting in May or June right away, then I would wait less time in my follow-up. If you already have your summer job lined up and you are now looking to line up a position for fall or winter, which is, 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 10 months from now would be the start date of that job, then I would give more leniency, more time before following up. Because with a position that's starting soon, the employer is needing to make a decision more quickly. So you want to make sure that you are in there and in the running for that position. So, give the employer some, and it may be a week, it might be 2 weeks, it might be a month. If that job is starting, months away, you never know. And it's going to depend on the employer as well. So we see, like I said, there's a variety of different business types that go from, small individual owned businesses to large corporate entities. So you might be applying directly to an owner of a business, or you might be going into a online resume application submit process that goes through, this HR team, and there's a whole dedicated team in the business that works the application process and interview process and all that stuff, and then everything in between. So that also is kind of going to make a difference. So if the first step was that you sent an email, because it's going to depend. As you'll look at the job listings, the contact points are different. Sometimes employers will say, you need to call me, and all they give is a phone number. Oftentimes it's an email address and they want you to email your resume. Like I said, sometimes there's an online application process or form that you fill out to get started. So first things first, you want to make sure you're following the directions in the ad. That's step number 1 before you got to make sure you get that right to get things started. If a employer includes multiple points of contact in their ad text, then use those multiple points of contact. So if you started by emailing your resume, then next step is I'm going to call. Or if the first step was that you called, next step I'm going to follow up with an email, etc. If they provided their like website address or like a link to their Facebook page or something, and you see another point of contact that you haven't tried yet, then go for that. If they have a contact form on their website, fill out that contact form. If they have a Facebook page, try sending a message through Facebook or something like that. So sometimes you can find some other ways to kind of sneak in, but always start with the instructions from the ad first if you're responding to an ad. Sometimes, like if you have your resume out in our database, you may be contacted by an employer initially, and then you have sent your resume and you're waiting for them to get back to you. So you may not have additional contact information for that employer. You can try to, go online and find some other contact points, but it's going to vary whether or not that will be successful. But again, if it's an immediate need job, I would maybe only wait a couple days before following up. If it's multiple months, you might give them a few weeks, or it could even be a month or more before, you know, they're in the process of wading through applicants and getting back to you. So it can certainly be a frustrating time, but yes, following up, absolutely. If it is a position, you know, that's multiple months out and you have a little bit more time to, you know, play the interviewing job finding process game, you could even mail them something. That's something that doesn't happen a lot anymore. You know, there's not a lot of physical mail. So when we do get mail, it's like, oh, we got mail, something came in the mail. It's like unique now. So, you know, send them a postcard from where you're at, or mail them your resume or something like that as part of the look at me, look at me, look at me, you know, attempts that you're trying to make to get seen by this employer, especially if it's an opportunity where you're like, everything I know so far is checking my boxes and I really, really want to be considered for this opportunity. And there can be a little more competition for wintertime positions. Like we talked about, there's fewer out there. And especially if you're a work camper where you're like, I need to earn wages for every hour worked and have an RV site provided to me at no cost. Those positions are fewer in the winter months. So oftentimes work campers are lining up positions anywhere from 3 to 10 to 12 months in advance. And this all you kind of have to figure this out, you guys, for what works best for you. Can give you an idea of what the general community does, based on our surveys and all the communications we've had with work campers and stuff before. But a lot of work campers do like to plan ahead, so they do have more time. With that job finding process, they're not as, under the gun to get that job lined up. Like, it's 6 months from now, I've got time to do interviews, to make sure I'm asking all the questions and getting all the information I need about that work camping job, giving yourself some flexibility there. But there can be risks with that too, lining things up further in advance. Something could change. If you accept that job, 6 months from now, but it doesn't, you accept a job and it starts 6 months from now, like, something could happen. That business could get all new ownership, and that new ownership no longer wants to use work campers, or some returning work campers decide to come back, and that was the job that you were supposed to have, and that employer maybe forgets to tell you about it until you get there, or something like that. So that's another thing, is staying in communication with that employer in between accepting the job and going to the job. Definitely keep the communication consistent so you are alerted to stuff like that. So stuff can happen in that time frame. So some work campers are like, no, I'm just gonna find, when I'm done with one job, I'm gonna start looking for my next job and hopefully start it in a few weeks, and that's how I'm gonna play it. That's cool. You need to find whatever, kind of timing and process works best for you, and how you like to do things. Like I said, 80% of the positions right now are like, we need help starting real quick here. So there are pretty often you can play things a little shorter, where you want to just start a job in a few weeks. There are opportunities still to pick from, probably not as big of a pool to pick from as if you are gonna start looking maybe 6 months or more out. So okay, that was a long answer to that question, but hopefully gives you some input there. But take a look at these couple articles in the goneworkcamping.com blog, and that'll give you even more insight and some tips on what to do. Okay, let's pop back over to the PowerPoint here. Okay, next up in our questions. This person says, they got to their first job last Thursday. When they wrote this question, they said, here it is Monday and still waiting to start. How long should I wait? This is an interesting one. This is a question that needs to be directed to the employer, and it kind of depends on what you think. Again, we don't have a lot of information here. This is all we have to go off of, so we don't know. But my initial inclination is, have you talked, does the employer know you're there? Like, have you talked to them? Like, are they just ignoring you? I don't know what the situation is, so like it's hard to say. If they're ignoring you and they're not going to talk to you, and then I don't know. It's weird to me that you're there and there isn't a plan in place. That would be very hard for me, the way I like to do things. You might be a little more flexible and be like, well, I can hang out here. It's cool. You know, if they don't want me to start for a while and it's not a burden for you, then if you need to wait another week or whatever. If the employer is in communication with you, I wouldn't be so worried. If the employer is straight up ignoring you, then you might need to find something else and move on. So this one is kind of a harder one to say. It kind of depends. And I don't know if you are working an opportunity where you're working a trade for your RV site, or are you working a job where you're going to be paid wages and you need those wages to, you know, eat and stuff. Then waiting a long time to get paid would be more challenging. So you probably shouldn't wait that long. So yeah, this is a situation where I'm wondering if like what questions were asked during the interview process. Was there an interview process? Because you guys shouldn't expect employers to know what to do or to know how to do things right. You may need to take the lead in the interview process. You want to make sure you know the answers to a lot of questions. So that way you can make the best decision on if this opportunity is going to be right for you or not. Because not every job is right for every work camper. You know, there are some employers that are out there to take advantage of work campers. There are employers that are out there that love work campers and just shower them and set them up with like the best environment possible. Like, so it takes some time and effort to get the details, again, to know and follow your gut, you know, as you're going through the process. And if the employer's not really responding, they're not giving you full answers, you don't really, you know, feel good about how things are going, then that's probably not, you know, going to be right for you. But, you know, if your gut says like, well, there's been a couple weirdness, but I think this is going to be right for us, you know, so it's a mix of get the information that you need, follow your gut, and, you know, putting those two together. So ideally, you would have known what your arrival date was to be. Once you arrived, what would be the process? Would there be an orientation? Would there be some training? Am I to arrive a couple days before I start work? You know, am I paid for any training ahead of time? Or, you know, do my hours start as officially on the first day? Like, that's that kind of stuff that should have been decided ahead of time, and also laid out in a work agreement. So let me go back to the browser, guys, because I'm saying all these things and you're like, what is all of this stuff that you're talking about? Okay, so just for some quick resources, I'm back on the Gone Work Camping blog, and most of these articles are on workamper.com in our article index as well, but this is open, you don't have to log in to this website to read the articles, so that's why I'm showing you guys this. So first off, here's an article, questions to ask Workamper employers to enhance expectations. So here is a big long list of questions that you may want to ask an employer. Now, all of these questions may not apply to you, and there are possibly questions that do not exist here that you should be asking because it's something that's specific to you. But you know, you should have a very good idea of your start dates, your end dates, your duties, the compensation, how it's going to be paid, when it's going to be paid, what your schedule is going to be like, when are you going to know the next week's schedule, you know, how do I take days off if I need days off? Like, those are the kinds of things that hopefully you would get laid out ahead of time with that employer. So I feel like maybe in this situation that this person is describing, like maybe kind of the ball got dropped a little bit on the employer side or on the work camper side, just not getting enough information up front. So that's frustrating. I'm sorry that that's how it's going for you. Anyway, questions here, this article, and I believe we have, there's another one in here that has more questions too. So just dig around in there. Also at workamper.com, Once you guys are logged in, you can get to our media library. And in our media library, we have a bunch of videos. We have some jobinars that are recordings done by employers talking about their jobs. We've got some interviews. There are a bunch of the Q&As that we've done here before. We have some general RVing topics that we've covered via webinar and presentations before, but we're going to scroll past all of those. Okay. So now we're here in the Workamper training section of the media library. And first there's this interviewing for Workamper jobs. That's a good one to give a listen to help prepare you for interviewing. Let me scroll this up a little bit. And then we have all about work agreements. So this is a good video where we go over what a work agreement is, what could be included, how to ask for one, etc. Not all employers will do a work agreement. It's not like a contract per se. Won't necessarily like hold up in court or whatever. It's just a communication tool. So it's a way to lay out all of the expectations of both parties. And so that way, hopefully everybody starts on the same page. And if you get to the job and things have changed or are changing that are different from what was agreed to in that initial work agreement, then you have that tool to go to management, ownership, whatever, and say, hey, this is what was agreed to, this is what is happening instead. What kind of compromise can we make, or what can we do to get back to what was originally agreed to, you know? And then it's up to you. If things change and get better, great. If things don't change and they don't get better, then it's up to you then to decide, well, I can finish this out through, you know, the time I've agreed to be here. It's not that big of a deal, or this is not good for me. I'm not safe. I'm not comfortable. I can't handle this. I need to go, you know? So again, it's a communication tool to help hopefully keep everybody on the same page. So those are some tips that I'm working into answering this question because I don't have a super solid great answer to this person's question. You got to kind of do what's right for you in this scenario. Alrighty, let's move on here. Okay, the answer to this question is going to be kind of similar to the last one. This person says, my husband and I have been hired as independent contractors for 6 months. We have a full hookup RV site with compensation per contract. And I typed this exactly how they wrote it, guys, so it's kind of a run-on sentence here. We can make our own hours, but that is not the case. I alone work 54 and he works about 40. How do we know enough hours has been done? You'll have to communicate with the employer and look back at your conversations and what was agreed to. If you are working as independent contractors, and that's something too, most work camping gigs, you should be classified as a W-2 employee, or you're a volunteer if you're just working in trade for your RV site, probably. If the employer wants to qualify or quantify or label you as an independent contractor and pay you and then give you a 1099 at tax time. If they're treating you as an independent contractor, then, like this person says, you need to be able to make your own schedule. You are going to do the work using your own materials. You decide how you want the work to be done. You have just been given an end goal by that employer and maybe like a deadline date for it to be done, where if the employer is saying you need to work these days and these times, you need to wear this specific clothing, I need you to do these specific duties in this specific way, here is all the equipment to do this job, that is an employee scenario. That is not an independent contractor situation. So some employers may try to classify you as an independent contractor, and it's not really an independent contractor type position. So just something to watch out for and kind of have an understanding of in your own mind. And we cover that in our FAQ and some articles and stuff on our website. So that way you know and won't have any surprises at tax time when doing your taxes and you get, some W-2s and some 1099s and why do I have this? Okay, but back to this specific scenario that this person is talking about. So if you are independent contractors and you're making your own schedule, like the number of hours that you work is determined by you. So if you're working 54 hours, but you only want to be working 40, then you have to decide how to revise your work so that you're only working 40 hours to accomplish whatever the end goal is instead of 54. Or you need to communicate with that employer and say, look, this end goal that you have given us that we need to be doing is over and above what we can successfully accomplish in the amount of time that we are being compensated for, you know, and see if then that end goal can just be changed, whatever it is you're doing. Like, I don't know what kind of job you're doing here specifically. So yeah, this is something that you'll have to work out with the employer. Knowing when enough hours, that also depends on the compensation. So compensation will vary depending upon the area. There are some work camping jobs that pay around minimum wage. There are other work camping jobs that pay upwards of $20 to $30 an hour. And when reviewing a work camping job, let's go back to our internet browser, you guys, and I'll give you a resource for that. We're gonna go back to the blog and we're gonna search on math. Because we have this great article here about doing the math on a work camping job. And so we go over kind of some different compensation scenarios, bonuses, looking at perks, tax considerations, what it's worth to you. And then we also have this worksheet down here at the bottom that you can download. So then you have that worksheet to use when evaluating each different job that, you know, you're considering. And so that comes back to asking a lot of questions in the interview process, because you're going to need quite a bit of information before you can do the math on a job. Most of the time with just a job listing that you see, you don't have enough information to determine what the actual compensation is going to be, especially if, you know, you're being provided things that are not like, oh, it's $15 an hour. That's pretty clear cut. But the other stuff that often comes along in compensation packages, you don't necessarily have a value for until you communicate with that employer, okay? So you might see a lot of compensation warriors in the Facebook groups immediately saying how terrible a job is based on, you know, an ad listing. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're probably not, because they don't have the information to actually evaluate it fairly. So it is up to you to decide if a compensation package is fair for you or not. The variety of compensation that's out there is as variety of the work campers that are out there. Some work campers only want to work and trade for an RV site because they don't want wages reported, and for Social Security, disability, any number of reasons, or just because they have other income sources and they don't need the money. So that's cool. There are positions where you could work some hours and trade for an RV site. Any hours over that are paid an hourly wage. There are some jobs where you're paid for every hour worked and you're provided an RV site. Or you're paid for every hour worked, but you have to pay a fee for your RV site. Some jobs are salary, some are commission based. Like, it really varies out there, okay? So again, it's about getting all that information up front, to doing the math and evaluating, you know, is this a fair compensation package or not? So going back to our friends here who asked this initial question, we really need more information before we can say what is enough hours. I don't know what type of work you're doing. I don't know what the compensation is that you agreed to. And like I said, it's also kind of going to vary by location. If you're in, you know, a high rent area, like if you're, you know, on the West Coast somewhere, it's a real touristy area, really popular area, stuff is going to be more expensive up there. An RV site on the coast costs more than an RV site in the middle of cornfields of Nebraska. Like, that's just the way it is. So having an RV site provided to you that has an ocean view is a higher value than an RV site packed like sardines in some commercial campground in just, you know, somewhere in the middle of the country or something. Like, I'm not trying to hate on the Midwest or whatever, but there are a lot of other pretty areas of the country where RV sites cost more. So anyway, yeah, there's some more math to be done here, it sounds like. So if you feel you are not receiving fair compensation for the hours that you're working, then a conversation needs to be had with the employer. And you need to be able to, you know, say like, this is why it's taking this long, and justify why it's taking you 54 hours instead of maybe the 40 hours you were hoping to work. If you can show, you know, some other, if you can find ads for similar type positions in a similar area and be like, well, look, here are what some other employers are offering for the same type of thing that we're doing. So maybe we'd like to try and get our compensation closer to that. So yeah, a conversation needs to be had with the employer and see if you can work things out to be closer to what you were hoping this would be. All right, next up, guys. This person says, I plan to run my own mobile RV technician business. Cool beans, lots of good write-offs running your own business on the road. This person says they'll be looking for part-time 20-hour gigs where I can do my hours, probably in trade for an RV site, then work my business. Will there be opportunities for me to service RVs in the campground? So this is going to vary. Some campgrounds or RV parks will be totally cool with you operating your business on their premises, but others will not for insurance reasons or because they're just not comfortable with that. If it is a governmental operation, like Army Corps of Engineers, state parks, federal parks, places like that, even if you're like working for a concessionaire that's operating on federal lands, that's going to be a lot harder. I know you have to, like, to be able to do business on government land, there's like a permit process and all this other kind of rigmarole that you have to go through. And so I know personally a mobile RV tech friend of ours, he lives just outside of one of the national parks, and he will not do service calls to campers who are camping in one of the national park campgrounds because of all the red tape and all the junk, and he would have to give part of his income to the park for operating on their premises, etc. So it becomes like quite a hassle. So will there be some opportunities? Yes, but probably not a whole lot. You're just going to have to ask. And I'm mentioned that government property, if you're looking for more part-time gigs, we see more of that in that realm. In the state parks, the county parks, Corps of Engineers, etc., there are more opportunities there to just work a few hours in trade for your RV site, more so than in like the commercial campgrounds and things like that. In the wintertime, there are more trade out opportunities, but you may see more hours than the 20 hours trading for RV sites. So it's going to kind of depend. So yeah, unfortunately, like I don't have like a list, like here are the campgrounds that we know where campers have operated businesses out of, you know. So you'll just have to ask the ownership of the campground to see if that's okay or not. It might be all right. And I'm trying to think, I don't even know if you could really do it under the radar. You would probably end up being found out, and that could cause some problems. So, you know, if you were someone like maybe you're like a hairstylist and you would do haircuts on the side, you know, for people, like you might be able to kind of keep that under the rug. Like someone comes into your RV, you cut their hair and they leave, like, you know, you're not necessarily like advertising and making a big deal about it. Like that might be something you could kind of run under the rug, but servicing an RV is going to probably be a little more noticeable than being able to do something inside your own RV. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a good list for you, but hopefully you can find a place that you are able to do your business, or you'll just have to do service calls in the general area. I know, you know, there are some websites and apps and stuff that you can put yourself on as a mobile RV technician to be found by people needing that service. So maybe you don't necessarily do service inside the campground, but you could at least service the general area that you're around. And you may, you know, want to pick a if you can find, that part-time gig at a park that's maybe in a touristy area or an area that has a lot of other parks kind of around it, that might drum up more work in that regard. Okay, next up here, this person is asking, two-part question: what is the worst job to have, and at what type of park? So my initial inclination is, well, work camping jobs are not just working at parks. So there isn't a specific type of RV park that is necessarily good or bad. This question, you guys, bottom line with this question, it's completely relative. So some people would be like, I will never clean a bathroom in my life. I would never, ever, ever, ever clean a public bathroom. You can't pay me to do it. $1 million wouldn't do it. If someone was like, you gotta clean bathrooms, that would be the worst job to have for that person who's just like, can't do it. But somebody else might be like, I have no problem cleaning bathrooms. It takes me 10 minutes. I'm great at it. I leave them sparkling. The guests come in, they enjoy the sparkling bathrooms. They tell me how clean and wonderful the bathrooms are, and it makes me feel really good, and I am just really prideful, and I love cleaning bathrooms. So it totally depends on you guys. The worst job to have is one that you don't want to do. So don't take a job that you don't want to do, bottom line. And again, that comes back to what we talked about before, asking a lot of questions about the opportunity. What is the job? What are the duties involved? Will I at any time be asked to work other jobs or other duties outside of what I originally agreed to? If so, what are those things? And, if they would expect you to kind of be a floater at the operation, and you're like, I'm not a floater kind of person. I want to do what I'm there to do, and that's it. Then that's maybe not the right opportunity for you. It's time to, move on and keep searching. If you are someone who really enjoys people and loves communicating and interacting with people, then go work at, a visitor center, work in a campground office, go to an amusement park and work in games or rides or food operations, go work at a restaurant and be a server or a bartender, or you could do the campground map ad sales where you're going around to different businesses and talking to people and selling them on advertising and stuff. If you're someone who's like, I really don't want to have to interact with people, it's really just not something that excites me. Like I'd rather just, do my work quietly and be kind of behind the scenes. Awesome. Then let's work at a warehouse, at the retail operations inside of a national park, or work in a kitchen at a restaurant, or do maintenance or janitorial at an amusement park. So even different businesses, it's the same business, but they'll have positions that kind of appeal to your different personality types or things you want to do, etc. So definitely, like I said, investigate the position. If it sounds like stuff you're willing to at least try out, then give it a whirl. If it sounds like stuff that you really, really don't want to do, then don't take that job. Okay? All right, cool beans. Okay, next up here, this person is looking to do maintenance type work. What tools should this person bring, or does the campgrounds provide such? Again, not just having to work in campgrounds, lots of other different types of things. There are many different business types that are seeking maintenance folks, so doesn't just have to be a campground. But most often, kind of like we talked about before, a lot of these work camping jobs, you are going to be more of a W-2 employee. Therefore, the employer should be providing the equipment you need to do the job. Now, I have heard of work campers who have gone and have been working at places, and the equipment that the employer is providing to do the job is crap. It's not good, they're not maintaining it, it's problematic, it's not safe, whatever. Like that kind of thing happens. And some employers then are just not willing to get anything better. Others, if you're like, hey, by the way, if we use this thing instead of this thing, it would be this much better, they might be like, awesome, let's get that to do it then. So sometimes employers just don't know what they don't know. Sometimes employers just know they're providing crap and aren't willing to do anything about it, and others will have everything that you need because they've, you know, done this before and understand investing and you know, in their equipment and how it helps everything down the line, etc. So it's going to vary, the employers and what they're providing. But most employers are not anticipating that you are coming with stuff, unless, again, we're going back to that independent contractor situation. So an example, U.S. Army Corps of Engineer parks, campgrounds, rec areas, etc. They will hire contractors to come in and, you know, maintain the bathhouse and shower houses. And so in essence, they are hiring an entity, could be just, you know, a Workamper couple operating as a small business. And in that instance, as contractors, then you are needing to provide all of the equipment you need to clean those bathhouses and shower houses, okay? Or, you know, mow all the grass or maintain all the camps or whatever you're contracted to do. So in a situation where you are a small business being contracted by another business to do a job, you would need to have your stuff with you. If you're just like, hey, I want to work maintenance at a campground, most often they're going to have the stuff. So I wouldn't worry about packing everything with you and bringing everything with you to do the type of work that you want to do. If you have some favorite, I mean, you're likely going to need to bring some stuff with you anyway. I mean, just maintaining an RV, you need a pretty decent toolbox with a variety of stuff in it just to handle the crap that can go wrong with the RV, you know. So you probably, you know, already kind of have some stuff with you, but maybe you have a few, you know, favorite tools that, you know, well, I have a really good thingamajigger, and so I'm going to bring that with me because it'll come in handy sometimes, and I really want to use it. But oftentimes they'll be providing the majority of stuff. You could go on to, you know, one of those Facebook groups or whatever and pose this question. I believe it's been asked before, you know, typically what kind of stuff do you guys, do work campers bring with them when taking jobs and traveling and stuff like that. But yeah, if you are going to be contracting and doing stuff, then you will want to have more tools and equipment with you. But hopefully you'll kind of know, you know, in that contracting process what you're going to need, and can get that organized ahead of time. Alrighty. What size of rigs are allowed in the campgrounds? Again, Workamping is not just working in campgrounds. I'm wondering if I need to consider a specific length to be too big. So what you need to do is find the RV that is best for you. And then once you have the RV that's best for you, then you can go about finding the work camping gigs that are a match for you and your home on wheels. So the most important thing is to find something that you like the general layout and how things are with the RV. You feel you can physically maintain it. I can drive this down the road. I can tow this with my vehicle. If it is a trailer, is the tow vehicle that you have capable of towing that trailer, you know? Yeah, are you physically capable of handling it? Does it have, you know, the things that you need or feel that you'll need, etc. So I wouldn't worry about getting a specific length. Again, is it the right price point for you? Like, those are the most important things. You need to love this home on wheels no matter what you're doing. So that comes first and is most important. There are some limitations sometimes. If you are looking to work in campgrounds specifically, some, you know, state parks, national parks, federal lands may have some length restrictions on their sites, but sometimes even those places, so like let's take Yellowstone, for example, Yellowstone National Park. If you just go and camp as a guest there in like the national park campgrounds, like I believe there is a length limit of like 30 feet or less in quite a few of the campgrounds. Where on the other hand, if you go work for a concessionaire that operates in Yellowstone National Park, the RV sites that the concessionaires lease from the Park Service are in their own like employee housing campground areas. And those sites can handle rigs up to 40 feet, sometimes 45 feet. So you can't always just like, you know, oh, I'll go look at Yellowstone and look at the general campsite restrictions. That may not be the case because there are employee campsites over here that can accommodate longer rigs, but you don't know that because that's not going to be on the, national park campground website, etc. So it's going to depend. A lot of people will be like, oh, typically 30 feet or less could get you in anywhere. I've found that to be the case just in looking for campsites, not for work camping, just in looking for general camping sites. If you're under 30 feet, you can pretty much fit at most campgrounds. There's going to be a lot less limitations with that. But again, you need to live in something that is comfortable for you, that accommodates you, your family, your pets, your stuff, your lifestyle, etc. So don't worry too much about the size. Size doesn't matter, guys. Okay. Alrighty. This person says, there are 2 of us in the RV, but only one of us is available for full-time work, as the other person does some remote work, and so she's only available to maybe work part-time. Will this be a problem for finding jobs? It's going to depend on what type of job you're looking for, what type of compensation that you're needing. Does the one person need to work full-time because you need that full-time wage income plus part-time income to be able to make things work financially? If that's the case, that might be a little bit harder to find the employer that will agree to that. But if you're in a situation where it's like he is available to work full-time, but he doesn't have to work full-time, so it's going to depend on the employer. There are, like going back to the Yellowstone example, the concessionaires that operate in the park, they are seeking people that can work at least 32 to 40 hours a week, and that's kind of their minimum. So in that case, it could be only your husband should then be applying for the positions. You could let them know that you are available to do some part-time work. Maybe they would be able to, if they have some holes in their schedule, or it's like, oh, we're really desperate, we need more people, sure, we'll take you part-time. There might be some situations where that, could come into play. So maybe your husband gets hired and you go to the job and he's the only one working the work camping job, like you're still work camping, working remote in your RV, but he's working for that employer. You might be able to pick up some hours here and there if a need comes up. But oftentimes when employers are advertising, sometimes they have part-time and full-time positions available, but oftentimes what they're advertising is kind of like one type. So yeah, it's going to vary. It might hinder you a smidge, maybe like more so like we talked about in the fall, winter, where there are just kind of less opportunities available anyway. But I would just get a good start on things, like applying ahead of time, giving yourself lots of good time for communication. And like you talked about here, you're already figuring out up front, like we know we're capable of doing this, and being upfront with the employer, here is our situation. We want to be a good fit for you. Can we make this work? That's good. You're not, withholding things or trying to be misleading, saying, oh, we're both available to work, and then throwing in, oh, but I can only work part-time, like once you've gone through the process, so being upfront about it is good. That way you're less likely wasting your time and the employer's time. So I think that's good. And so just get your, resume put together really well, and just start contacting employers and seeing what they think. But you may more so end up applying as a solo. He would apply as a solo work camper and just be like, hey, by the way, my partner's with me. She works out of the RV. She would be available for some part-time work if needed, kind of thing. And that's what we see with our the job listings that come through our hotline system. Over 75% of employers consider solos. So there are more opportunities for solos than not. All right. Moving on, guys, we've got a few more questions that were pre-submitted, but then we can move, those of you who are online live with us, we can move to your questions here in just a bit. Okay, this person is asking, are positions always for a full season, or do employers accept work campers for shorter tenures? Are they always for a full season? No. Do employers accept work campers for shorter tenures? Yes, some do. So that's the short answer. Again, it kind of varies. If it's a big operation, let's take Yellowstone again for an example. So the concessionaires, like Delaware North is the main concessionaire in Yellowstone that hires Workampers. There's also the Yellowstone Park Service Stations and Yellowstone Forever. They also hire Workampers. But they will let Workampers, like I think their minimum is 3 months, I want to say. And so if you can't come in until July, then you can do like July, August, September, or maybe start the season June, July, August. So there are some opportunities for doing a shorter stint within their bigger season. With that operation, they hire, students and even students from foreign countries that come in and work in the national park and in the retail stores and the food operations there. And those students have to go back home and go to school typically before the season is over, before all the operations close down for the winter. So they especially need help at that end of the season or maybe the beginning of the season before the students can get there and after the students leave. So definitely in the shoulder season, there are more opportunities where an employer may be struggling and may need more help because of a situation like that. So if you are only available for X period of time, but you see this opportunity, this job listing, and you're like, man, I'd really like to do that, but I can't do that whole season, just contact them and see. Maybe you'll, get lucky and like that same day the employer was contacted by a Workamper who's like, I can do May, June, and July. And then you contact and you're like, I can do July, August, September, and they can put you two together and then that fits their need, So there could be times where that comes into play. So it is going to vary. There are some opportunities. It is interesting, and this has been pretty consistent over the years. So we do an annual survey to get a picture of who the work camping community is, which we do have available now. It's open right now, April to May. And we have one survey where people who are dreaming of the lifestyle answer questions, and those who are actively work camping answer questions. And the dreamers, when we ask them, how long of a job do you want to take? Do you plan on taking? And they always, the majority of them, answer 2 to 3 month gigs. But then you go to the active work camper survey, and their answer to that question is like 5 to 6 or 6 to 7 month gigs. And that always intrigues me because I do think this is pretty typical. It's not the same for everybody, but I've experienced it myself. You get into RVing or you're thinking about RVing and you're like, oh, we're going to travel and we're going to go all around and see all these cool places. And maybe we'll be here for a week and there for a week and there for a couple weeks and then move again and move again and move again. And then you start doing that and you're like, this is so tiring. We're moving again. Can't we just stay put for a while? This is expensive. Do you know how many miles we've gone this, how much gas we've spent and hopping around all these campsites? That campsite last week was $75 a night. Isn't that crazy? So I think that just goes to show how a lot of us get into RVing with an idea of how we're going to RV, and then it kind of evolves. And you're like, oh, 6 months in one place is kind of nice. So you might try it. If you are just like, well, I don't want to work a full season because I don't want to work a full season. Well, maybe try it. Maybe you'll like it. Just try it once and see. What's the harm? But if it is a situation where it's like, well, I'm only available this time because I'm a teacher and I only have this much time off during the year, then, there's definitely that restriction and you need to follow that. So you may also find more flexibility in the volunteer realm, like going back to like what we talked about, Corps of Engineers, state parks, county parks, nonprofits, historical societies, like that kind of stuff. Sometimes they are willing to do volunteers for shorter periods of time because you're not the main staff at the operation, you're like support staff at the operation. So they love to have you, but it's easier for them to have volunteers coming and going because the training's not as extensive, etc. If it's like a small mom and pop campground and it's like the owners and one set of work campers, like they want you that full season. They can't have different people, different work campers coming and going throughout the season. You know, some people come in and they got to train them, and just as they're well established, they're going to leave and somebody new is going to come in. Like that creates too much like hecticness in the season for the operation. They need somebody to come in, get trained, work the season, and get it done. So they're also then thusly maybe more flexibility with the employers that hire a larger quantity of work campers versus the smaller operations that just hire a few work campers. So, oh, and then there are, you know, kind of the short-term gigs that are out there and have been out there for a long time. The sugar beet harvest is one of them. That's like a 10 to 2 week, up to a month maybe operation, and that takes place in North Dakota, Minnesota, I want to say, and then over in Michigan. Express Employment Professionals does the recruiting for that. So that's a really popular one. You can make some really good money doing that. Christmas tree sales lots, that's like a November, December opportunity, make commissions or a wage, etc., selling Christmas trees at like a Christmas tree lot tent setup thing. Fireworks sales is another shorter term. Doing some retail sales like at Christmas time. There are some operations that have like the kiosks in malls that do hire work campers for a shorter term like that. So there are some gigs, festivals, different things like that where the positions are a few weeks or maybe a couple months. So those are out there too. You might be able to kind of fill in. Another one I just thought of is doing tax preparation. Jackson Hewitt is super into work campers now. And so a lot of their operations are now recruiting work campers, typically January through April. So yeah, definitely kind of some, you know, more interesting shorter term stuff that's out there. Okay, hopefully that helped. All right, this was a very thorough question, lots of information given to make it really easy to answer. This question is just resume? Question mark. So yeah, resumes are good. I would recommend that you create one to have a good introduction of yourself to employers. Since you posed this question, we will take the time then to hop over. This is Workamper.com's resume builder tool. It is a step-by-step process that you fill in the blanks and it creates a resume for you geared towards work camping. If you use our builder tool, once you create your resume, it's then available in our database, only accessible by our employers who have paid to access it. And you can then be found by employers and they will come to you with their jobs. Or you can always use the buttons on the right there to print out your resume if you want to mail it or take it in somewhere. You can email it to anybody you want, or you can export it as a PDF file. Maybe you're doing an online application process and there's a spot for you to upload a resume. So we've got all of that covered for you here. You just go in, fill in your contact information, when you're available to start work, what season that you are desiring to find the work for, different types of places that you're interested in working for, salary, benefits, preferred work schedule. Then you can come to the locations and then you can check the states that you are interested in being in, starting on your availability date and for the season that you want to work for. If you're like, we want to see all 50 states, okay, but you're looking for a winter job, are you going to want a winter in Alaska, Montana, Idaho, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin? You really want to spend the winter up there? If you do, cool beans, rock it out, enjoy the snow. Most RVers don't and want to be south. So only select the locations that you want to be in starting on your availability date. You can put in past job history here, work camping jobs or other jobs, that's fine. The sell yourself section is where it gets a little scary. It'll just be an empty box when you come to this page, but there is this button over on the right to view a sample, and you're welcome to model off of this sample here. We definitely recommend breaking up your text into like some different paragraphs, some different sections, so it's easier to read. Maybe some bulleted lists, etc. Because as employers are looking at resumes, whether you're just sending it to them, whether they're finding your resume in our database or whatever, you have a few seconds to get their attention. And so if it's just a big blob of text, they're maybe gonna skim it, possibly, but might just go on past it and not even take the time to read it. So, you know, break it up, try to be concise, but also informational. Don't get too wordy, but definitely focus on what you bring to the table. You need to answer the question that the employer is asking, what's in it for me if I hire these people, you know? And so in looking at the different types of positions that you want to apply to, kind of tailor your resume to that, utilize the keywords that you see employers using in advertising, as far as like listing your skills or listing the types of jobs that you're interested in working. And like I said, just think of everything you've done in your life that have given you skills that could apply to these positions. Oftentimes, these positions are fairly, you know, kind of entry level. Like it's most of them are not rocket science. You don't often need a boatload of experience to do these positions. So employers are most often just looking for folks who are honest and flexible and are willing to do what they say they will do and follow through and have a good attitude about it. So that's really kind of the bottom line for a lot of employers. You can put photos on your resume if you want, and you can also put a link to a video that you've put on your YouTube channel where, you know, you've done a little introduction of yourself, like, hey, you know, this is me and I'm super awesome and I hope to be an asset to your operation, da, 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 da. And then we take all of that content and compile it into a nice looking resume here that, like I said, can be found in our database or you can send out, etc. Workamping resumes don't have to be as like thorough and robust as a professional style resume that you have maybe had in the past. You don't necessarily need to list every job that you've ever had or all of your educational stuff, awards, things like that. If those things apply to the position that you are wanting to go for, then, you know, definitely want to mention that. But otherwise, you don't want to bog it down too much and have too much in there that they'll get overwhelmed. And also, you guys, if we go to the article index, which I've gone to already in this page, we have a lot of articles in here about resumes, and we have a video or two as well in the media library. So I just want to show you, this article index actually has more articles in it than the blog website that we were looking at earlier. So lots of different articles in here about resumes, 4 tips for your resume, spruce up your resume, self-promotion, Sandy's mom's resume, resume employer's view, guide to resumes, resume worksheet. So lots of good stuff in here to help you guys with the content of your resume. Not every employer will require you to have a resume or to send a resume, but a lot of them will. It's just kind of a nice, you know, concise way to get some information about you. If you are a family, like if you're a 2-person team or like a family, maybe with like teenagers who are gonna work or whatever, oftentimes you can all be on one resume. You know, like with our resume builder tool, it is built for 2 people right now. On the new version of the website, you're gonna be able to add up to, I think it's 4 or 5 people on the one resume. So Workamper employers are used to like a 2-person team being on one resume. You don't necessarily have to each have your resume. Some employers may require that, but the majority of them don't require that. So yeah, so typically one. All right, what else with resumes? That's all that's kind of coming to mind. Again, it's just making a first impression. And with our database, like I said, your resume is, you know, answering most of the questions that the employers are wanting to get information on. I've seen a lot of people on social media, they make these like fancy looking things with pictures and like text and different fonts and all this other stuff. And some of those like look really cool. But understand that when you make an image and you post an image on social media, that's not searchable. Like if an employer is looking for a Workamper that has maintenance skills and they're ready to start in June, you know, an employer can't go in a Facebook group and search, if that's even if that's what your picture says, you know, in your picture graphic that is your resume, you have maintenance, I can start in June, the employer's not going to find you because the searching in Facebook, A, is challenging and you're fighting the algorithm all the time, and B, doesn't search images. So totally go on social media if you're up for sharing your info to the open internet and stuff. Like, I know that works for some work campers, and that's cool. It could be another tactic. I'm sure there are employers that use Facebook that don't use our system. There are employers that use our system that don't use Facebook, blah, 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 all of that. So, you know, in your job finding process that you guys figure out for yourselves, you're probably going to use multiple tactics in, you know, connecting with work camping jobs, and that's cool. So, but if you are going to do the social media posting, like, again, doing the pretty image thing is cool, and like emailing that as a first impression is probably really good, like the pretty looking resume ones. But again, watch your font choice, make sure it's readable. And that's something too, however you guys build your resume, whatever you use to do it, send your resume to some of your friends and family members and be like, hey, would you guys just take a look at this and give me your general opinions on stuff? Because they may find like typos, or like you worded something kind of weird that they didn't understand, and maybe you could word it a little differently. They may think of things like, hey, I know that you're really good at blah, blah, blah. Why didn't you mention that in your resume? And you'll be like, oh, well, I guess I didn't even think of that. So have some people proofread and take a look at your resume for you, and get their, you know, feedback as well. Or fellow work campers if you want to, you know, have some work camper friends too. So, all right, that was a little bit of like a crash course on resume. So hopefully that answered the question of resume. Oh, that's cute. All right, that's the wrong one. This one, no, still not the right one. This one, there we go. Too many buttons, guys. Okay, all right. This is the last pre-submitted question. This is an easy one. This person has obviously maybe been a member before. Are you still offering the quarterly magazine? Because I have not received one. A, it was a bi-monthly magazine, so we would do 6 issues a year. Are we still offering it? No. And that is because the first reason is that the cost to produce the magazine went up 45% in 1 year. And the other is that y'all weren't wanting it. So more and more members were opting to not receive the magazine, and employers also were more so using the hotline and didn't want to advertise in the magazine anymore. So we weren't going to keep producing something that cost us too much and you guys didn't really want. So if you were a fan of the magazine, I'm really sorry. We were a fan of the magazine too. We may still do a publication of some sort in the future. It certainly won't be 6 issues a year, but we may decide to do something. We're very focused on getting the new version of workamper.com all programmed and out there and launched and, you know, bug free and stuff. So that's really been our main focus at this point. So we're not in a mind space of coming up with other tools and new things to do at this point. We got to get that launched and out there. But the full magazine archive is on the website. There are 100 issues available. This is available to any level of member, whether you're a free member or a paid member. Each issue does have job listings organized by state, and then articles about the work camping and RVing lifestyle. So lots of really good stuff in here. Most employers are members with us like for years and years and years. We have some employers that have been recruiting partners for 20 to 30 years already. So my point in saying that is, if you see an ad in an old issue of the magazine and that business is still open, you're like, hey, that sounds like something I would like to do. Contact that employer and see if they're still in business. It's very possible that they are still hiring work campers, even if they're not actively advertising right now. So I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to an opportunity that sounds right for you guys, whether it's an old ad or a new ad. But at least in our system, you are always going to know when that ad was posted. I know on some other websites, there's ads posted and they could be a year old, 2 days old, you just don't know. But my husband and I are very particular. So we are setting up things how we would want them to be set up. So you'll see a lot of details, especially on the new website with all of that coming into play. Anyway. Okay, so sorry, no longer publishing the magazine, but you can look at the past issues. We're still providing everything. Like all of the job listings are now just the new job listings are going through the hotline system. Instead of, because it was confusing. Oh, go look at jobs in the magazine. There are new magazines, so you need to look there. And then there's this hotline system over here. And so 2 main avenues. Oh, by the way, we also do jobinars, and there's a featured employer page, and there's a volunteer page, which lists nonprofit entities that are looking for work campers. And so it's too confusing for us to provide you guys all of these different avenues to connect with employers. It just gets to be too much. So with discontinuing the magazine, with changing our website to this new version that we're going to have, we're just narrowing the scope. So there's one page that you go to look at job listings. You can search them, you can save jobs, organize those saved jobs, how you want to organize them, etc. So we're trying to streamline and make things more simple for you guys. That's our goal. Okay. All right, so those are the pre-submitted questions. We got through all of them. Woohoo! And so there are a few of you guys that are still online. If y'all have any questions or input that you want to share, just let me know. Go ahead and type those questions in. You should have a questions option on your smartphone or tablet you can tap on and type in, or that GoToWebinar control panel there on your screen that you can type into. But if not, that's cool. We did cover quite a bit today, but again, there's still a lot to learn about this work camping lifestyle. And I know we talked for well over an hour. Most of these Q&As are well over an hour, just because there's a lot to say about all of these things. And so that's what we're here for, you guys. Here at Workamper News, myself, my husband, Laura, Sandra, Shannon, we're passionate about helping you guys live this lifestyle, whether you're a work camper or an employer looking to recruit work campers. Our goal is for you to dig into the resources that we have, to learn as much as you can, to hopefully avoid problems that could come up, negative situations, etc. If work camping is your chosen lifestyle, we want it to be awesome for you, and it can really be awesome. You can listen to those episodes of our podcast, The Work Camper Show. You'll hear from work campers who are living the lifestyle, how they're doing it, what's come up for them, what they've experienced. There are also employers that share about their jobs on the podcast. Like we talked about at workamper.com, we have that media library full of videos. We also have a section called My University that has online courses in it that we didn't even talk about today. So lots of education to dig into. It can be a little overwhelming, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. You can find our phone number, our email and stuff on our website, on our Facebook page. We have a Facebook group called Workamping Today. Y'all are welcome to join that Facebook group and post questions and talk about stuff in there. Very rarely do you guys do that. So yeah, anyway, we're happy to help. So no questions are coming in, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up for the May 2024 Q&A. But again, I appreciate everyone listening and joining us, and please go join workamper.com and connect with the best resource for work camping. And with that, I wish you all safe travels and happy work camping. Thanks, everybody.